What's going on, creatives? This is part 2 of the content automation process using make.com. In the first video, we had our webhook that went from our form. That form was submitted to the Google Sheets and then the OpenAI. I added in the router and we had Google Sheets and stuff like that. So this is the entire process to go from the form to getting the story to getting the images. And so let's go ahead and walk through this process here. So in the first step, it was here. We just had the webhook. Google Sheets took out. We saved everything into Google Sheets. That went into the OpenAI. I added in a router because I also want to take the story, put it into Google Docs, and then take the story and send it over to an OpenAI Assistant. So, and then this is the process here. Now, there's a lot of steps here to actually get an assistant to generate the image prompts and actually to iterate through and get that image prompt, to download the image prompt, and then get it into Dropbox and to the Google Drive. All right, so there's some details that we need to go through in each of these, so let's go ahead and do that. Starting with the OpenAI Assistant. So here is the OpenAI Assistant. We can see I'm using my prompt generator. It's using a GPT-4o mini. It's getting the result from OpenAI, so it's using that result. And this is the actual story. Now, what I did with the OpenAI Assistant is that we're going to use a structured output in the sense that we want very specific information to come back to the replicate so we can then generate the image. And what I want you to note here is this. Here's the name of the generator. Here's the storyboard frames. This is important to understand, storyboard frames. And then you can see that the array has my character descriptions, camera angle, style design, lighting, details, and it also has a color palette. Now, to generate this structured output JSON file, you actually just have to give OpenAI character description. You just give it the actual properties. So you look at character description, camera angle, style design, lighting, color, lighting, details, color palette, and you click on generate. You give it those 5 or 6 outputs that you're looking for, and it will create this structure for you. So let's take a look at the actual assistant. All right, so if we look at the assistant here, you can see here is the prompt generator. Here's the model that I'm using, and if we open this up, here's the actual prompt. So here's our system prompt, and I'm trying to get it to have some consistency across the board when we talk about color palette, when we talk about details and design. I'm looking for that consistency in writing the prompt. If we go down here, it has storyboard generator. And all I did was I come here, I wrote out what I wanted. I wrote the fields that I wanted, how many of each that I wanted, and it then created this array for me. And you can see how it has down here, requires description, character description. So here's the requirements. Storyboard frames, is save, and that is pretty much it. So we have here, and then we're going to move on to the next one. So with this storyboard now coming in, we have our JSON, and our JSON is getting the results from the OpenAI Assistant, and then is iterating through the storyboard frames. So you can see here is iterating through the storyboard frames. If we look at one of them here, we can see that if I come in here, here's the output, storyboard frames, and then here are the 5 collections. So here are my 5 prompts. So it's iterating through these prompts. And the iterator is getting the storyboard. So you can see that right here from our JSON is just iterating through the storyboards. And the storyboards have the character descriptions, all of these. So if you want to iterate through a single, all right. So next we have the actual replicate API. And this is the API that we have here. We're using post. We have our bearer, and you have to actually type in bearer and then put in your API key. And then you go further down. This is the actual prompt that we're sending. Okay, and where we're getting this information from, let's go over to, if we come over to replicate, and we have the model that we're using, and then you're going to use HTTP. Let's zoom in here. We're using the HTTP here. Here is that JSON format. So this is where I got the JSON format, and you can see I have my prompt here. I have the prompt unsampling true, and all we did is add in the aspect ratio and the, if we come in here, we have our schema, and you can see we have aspect ratio here. We have our output format here. So those are 2 additional fields that I added in, where I had aspect ratio, output format. Okay. Now if we look at this, you can see we've iterated through this. Here's our model, and then we have all of our prompt. Go to settings. And if we look at how I did this, if I click on here, you can see my iterator right here is bringing in this information, the character description, camera angle, style, lighting, details, color palette. So I just drag those into the actual prompt area, and then we just apply them over here. Next, we talk about this section here is the tools. Now this part here, this first tool is a delay, and the delay is here just so we don't send all of the images at the same time. So we're giving it that 5-second delay, and then we're sending the next one. But the main thing here is this. We're pulling in the JSON string, we're pulling in that data that is coming from our replicate, and what we're going to pass on is this link right here. This is the actual link to your image. Okay, so we have to get this link. All right, so we get this link by basically adding in another HTTP call. We get the link, and we're saying we're going to use the URLs get, and the method is get, and again we have our API key here. So once we get this link, we then have to parse the link out, because we have to pull that link so we can download it. So we pull that link and we use a downloader here. So this output, this is the actual link. This is what we're going to download. So you can see it has number 28, the output. We're grabbing this output, and this is what we're going to download. It seems like a lot of steps, but this is the way you have to do it. Once we have it, once we have the download, we have to select the place to download it to. And in this case, I use the router, so I can route it to my Dropbox, and I can route it to Google Drive. Now, Google Drive takes a little bit of effort to set up. Now, one thing we have to decide is this. to get these images, is this effort worth it? Using this make.com, was that worth it? Because here is the JavaScript code for doing the exact same thing. So the JavaScript code is, we have our replicate, the JSON file, we have the data wander in the JSON file. So that's where it's coming from. Here it is, descriptions, camera angle, shot descriptions, lighting, details, color palette. And this is coming from the JSON file. And this is our model. Here's our output. And this is where we create the directory to save everything. And so we have this code that we could run, and if we look at the JSON file here, it's here. So the question being, could we write all of this code out? I think is how comfortable are you with setting up all of this code and prompting through this code versus using the make.com and doing it that way. I will provide all of this information, so I will actually provide the code and the template, and I will provide the PowerPoint slide as well, so you guys can have all of that if you wanted to go ahead and build with this. All right, that is it. We are out.